I have a theory, but I think it's kind of underrated. People who can recreate great games can become great developers. Just like how art students can improve by studying previous masters, I believe the same concept can apply for game development. I want to put that theory to the test. I'll put together all my game developing knowledge to remake some of my favorite games that has inspired me to walk this road of game dev. And hopefully, I'll be better than I was. So what game am I going to make? This is Hollow Knight. You may have heard of it. It was a game developed by indie studio Team Cherry. For me, it was a game that has introduced me to the Metroidvania genre, with a story about a little quiet knight exploring the somber world of Hallownest. You can really feel the hard work and care they have put with their great environmental storytelling and well-crafted boss fights. Even after the game was successful, they put out some of the best DLCs ever, and you can just tell they really wanted to make the best game they could. The boss fight that I wanted to make are the Mantis Lords. Between making the character, the environment, and the boss, I knew that if I actually finished it, I would come out a much better developer. So I started by modeling the character. It took a few days, but I was pretty happy with how the model turned out. When you play Hollow Knight, you'll notice the character moves in a 2D perspective from left to right. Since mine was in 3D, I thought it was a really good chance to make the movement omnidirectional. These are the animations and poses that I've made for the controller. To improve it, I've added a particle system for the dash and dust particles for walking and jumping. And after programming the controller, this is what it looks like. And that is the controller. So now I was ready to start working on the environment. Compared to the last video, this environment was going to be a way bigger challenge, but there were some tricks to make things easier. I started by blocking out the playable area. I made a list of the repeating details in the environment and modeled them in Blender with modular models and shaders. For the spikes, there were hundreds that I needed to make around the arena, so I ended up painting them in Krita and projected them as individual 3D cards to populate the scene. I finished it up by modeling all the foreground and background elements. This is what all the individual props look like. And this is what everything looks like in the environment. And after putting the character in a game and moving around, I was really feeling like everything was coming together. And now that I was done with the environment, I was ready to start working on a boss. Making the Mantis Lords was going to be a really big challenge. It was my favorite boss fight in the game, especially the DLC version where you got to fight all three at once, and that was the version that I wanted to make. So I started by making the model. Even though there were three bosses, they were all pretty identical in design, so I ended up using the same model for all three of them. And with them, I could start working on the battle mechanics. I started by making a little animation for the player's attack. I made a Niagara system for the slashing effect, but when you hit the enemy, it'll do a little burst of particles for feedback. So I made a little particle bursting system, so now when you hit the boss, you'll get a little camera shake and the particles will go in the direction you hit it from. I also had to work on getting healed and taking damage. And in order to do that, I had to start working on the UI. I made a soul vessel that climbs up as you hit your enemy. These are the sprite animations for the healing and damaging in our UI. I managed to get the healing to work, and getting hit would give you the same screen cracking effect that you would get in the original game. But if you get hit a bit too much, then you lose. And now that I was done with the foundation, I could finally start focusing on the boss battle. The fight was split into two phases. You would start by only fighting one of them. It is a great introduction, but the fun really starts in the second phase where you get to fight all of them at once. I had to make three different attacks. The first was a diving attack that went onto the player's location. The second throws a projectile onto the player. And the third one was a lunging attack that goes towards the knight. They may seem pretty easy to dodge, but the true complexity of the fight comes from the choreography. By programming all of these attacks into a sequence, I managed to tie the combat together in a harmonious way. That is pretty much the game. Honestly, I really wish that I didn't take 6 months to come out with this video. When I first started on this game, I really wanted to respect and preserve the feeling of this original game. And hopefully I did a pretty good job. It was just getting so hard to make any changes afterwards because anything I tried to change by the end of it, I would end up needing to spend hours to fix. And because of my inexperience, any improvements I would try to make just would end up breaking it. And I was actually starting to get pretty scared that I wouldn't be able to finish this project. So yeah, without any further ado, here's the game. Thank you so much for watching up to this point.